sun coming in over my right shoulder is kind of distracting me. But whatever.
All right.
Good enough.
We are live.
We
And
are
hopefully
live.
live. Uh,
Yeah, we are. Well,
okay.
supposedly.
I'm waiting for that number to tell me that people are connected.
Actually watching? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the eye pops up pretty quick, but you never know. All
Yeah,
right.
it's always stays at zero for a few seconds. There it goes.
All right. Now I definitely know that we are live. I am Old New Dude. He is.
Richard York, Asher's trueborn son.
I apologize ahead of time. I had one of my medications changed, and it is affected by energy level. So I don't know how well I'm going to do today, but I didn't want to cancel it because we had all last week off. I don't want to get even further behind on this. But we are Clash of Kings, Tyrion 12. Sanji, congratulations for being first. Uh, Chris the Crow yesterday was his 28th birthday, so happy name day
Happy
to
birthday,
Chris the
Chris.
Crow.
Happy name
Um,
day.
and I planned on being at book club tonight, but with my energy level, I don't know if I'm going to be able to. I might have to have Chris the Crow step in. But I'll know more here in a little while. I'll probably take a nap after this is over with. But enough of
Oh, too
me.
late. Too late. He's saying thank you. Oh, just for the birthday. He's not thanking
Yeah,
you
yeah,
for
yeah.
letting him go to the thing. Never mind.
Yeah. All right. Well, enough about me. If you watch any of these, you know we start with the brains of the operation, which is Richard, who I thank all the time for being part of this. And he'll say what he saw with the chapter, and then I will jump in with my stupid stuff. Hey, Pod.
Happy birthday, Trixie Crow. All right. Class 54, Tyrion 12. In the Hand's 12th chapter, he meets with Cersei. Uh, that's a reference to Ned and the Godswood. But anyway, Pod, and this chapter is almost exclusively about meeting with Cersei, and that chapter is almost exclusively about meeting with Cersei. And they're both their 12th chapters. But anyway, Pod dressed him for his ordeal in a plush velvet tunic of Lannister crimson, and brought him his chain of office. Tyrion left it on the bedside table. His sister misliked being reminded that he was the king's hand, and he did not wish to inflame the relations between them any further. Might be a little late for that. Varys caught up with him. Well, actually, no. They're gonna very much inflame their relations in this chapter, both directions, really. Anyway,
Yeah.
Varys caught up with him as he was crossing the yard. "My lord," he said, a little out of breath, "you had best read this at once." He held out a parchment in a soft white hand. "A report from the north." Do you think he's being dramatic in terms of being out of breath, or do you think he was really just running fast to catch up with him?
I think it's dramatic. I think it's all show.
Yeah, it could be. "Good news or bad?" Tyrion asked. "That is not for me to judge." Tyrion unrolled the parchment. He had to squint to read the words in the torchlit yard. "Gods be good," he said softly. "Both of them?" "I fear so, my lord. It is so sad, so grievous sad, and them so young and innocent." Uh, I thought we weren't judging whether this was good or bad. Anyway.
Hey, quick thing. We know he has
Sure, Council.
little kids at King's Landing, but how can he get information all the way from Winterfell?
I mean, if we're assuming that the reason he knows that the gods would burn doesn't know the seven when the seven was a spectacular show put on for everyone on the island, and the gods one was done in private, the implication would be that he can spy on Winterfell through the Weirwoods.
Yep. Okay. I just wanted to confirm.
Yep. Tyrion remembered how the wolves had howled when the Stark boy had fallen. "Are they howling now, I wonder?" "Have you told anyone else?" he asked. "Not as yet, though of course I must." He rolled up the letter. "I'll tell my sister." He wanted to see how she took the news. He wanted that very much. The queen looked especially lovely that night. She wore a low-cut gown of deep green velvet that brought out the color of her eyes. Her golden hair tumbled across her bare shoulders, and around her waist was a woven belt studded with emeralds. Tyrion waited until he had been seated and served a cup of wine before thrusting the letter at her. He said not a word. Cersei blinked at him innocently and took the parchment from his hand. "I trust you're pleased," he said as she read. "You wanted the Stark boy dead, I believe." Cersei made a sour face. "It was Jaime who threw him from that window. Not me, for love, he said, as if that would please me. It was a stupid thing to do and dangerous besides. When did our sweet brother ever stop to think? So that's always been kind of interesting, right? That Cersei's actually was not impressed, that Jaime was trying to impress Cersei, and that Cersei was not impressed by the act.
Now, was she not impressed, or is she telling Tyrion that she wasn't impressed?
That's always worth asking. That certainly people are not exactly honest in this books.
Well, definitely Cersei's not honest. I
Uh,
put her
Quite a few
almost
people.
with Varys as everything comes out of her mouth. You got to take with a grain of salt. And
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with this character, Varys.
oh, excuse me, Dorcas. It's Friday. I'm tired. Sorry.
The boy saw you, Tyrion pointed out. He was a child. I could have frightened him into silence. She looked at the letter thoughtfully. Why must I suffer accusations every time some Stark stubs his toe? This was Greyjoy's work. I had nothing to do with it. Yes, Ned just stubbed his toe.
Mm-hmm.
Jaime tried to impress her. Men are such thundering great fools. Even the sword would come along once in 1,000 years. Anyway. Let us hope Lady Catelyn believes that. Her eyes widened. She wouldn't. Kill Jaime? Why not? What would you do if Joffrey and Tommen were murdered? I still hold Sansa, the queen declared. She's proving his point. Like, that's his point. You believe that people cannot harm your people around you because you have a hostage. What does that tell you? It tells you that what you would do if people you loved were harmed is kill the hostage. Tyrion has pointed this out to her, and she's totally just like falling into what he's saying, proving his point.
Exactly.
We still hold Sansa, he corrected her, and we had best take good care of her. Now, where is this supper you promised me, sweet sister? Cersei set a tasty table that could not be denied. They started with a creamy chestnut soup, crusty hot bread, and greens dressed with apples and pine nuts. Then came lamprey pie, honeyed ham, buttered carrots, white beans and bacon, and roast swan stuffed with mushrooms and oysters. Tyrion was exceedingly courteous. He offered his sister the choice portions of every dish and made certain he ate only what she did. Not that he truly thought she'd poison him, but it never hurt to be careful. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
who would poison their own sibling? Anyway.
Oh, also something else before we get in too far before I forget. She wore a low cut green
Uh-huh.
dress.
Right, and later on in
Anytime
this
that,
chapter,
yeah,
she's going to specifically.
anytime that she has to get one over on a guy,
Mm-hmm.
she automatically thinks of a sexual way, or it's her go to
Yep,
response.
yep. And it's not just her either.
Yeah,
Shay and Catelyn do this too. So
yeah,
in the Cat 2, the first chapter that I joined you on, the Cat deliberately like gets naked to throw everybody off, and so that everybody be all flustered, right?
yeah.
And Shay does the same thing with Tyrion when she's aware of his marriage to Sansa.
Mm-hmm.
She she basically just distracts him and seduces him at the time because she's not supposed to know that, right? And there's no
Right.
way that people are idly talking in front of others, so she's just trying to totally distract him.
Yeah, not to mention Lawless is going to be the center of information at the Red Keep.
Yeah, well, she claims that the servants are all talking about it. So
Uh,
but I don't think that's true. Anyway,
no.
the news about the Starks had soured her. He could see. We've had no word from Bitterbridge. She asked anxiously as she speared a bit of apple on the point of her dagger and ate it with small, delicate bites. So, is Cersei really soured about the news, or is she soured about her brother wrongly accusing her, or both?
Probably both.
Yeah. Anyway, none. I've never trusted Littlefinger. For enough coin, he'd go over to Stannis in a heartbeat. Stannis Baratheon is too bloody righteous to buy men, nor would he take a comfortable lord nor would he make a comfortable lord for the likes of Peter. This war has made for some queer bedfellows, I agree, but those two, no. Agreed. Stannis would end Littlefinger, and Littlefinger knows it.
Oh yeah.
As he carves some slits, I mean, and that's part of why he betrayed Ned, right? Is his life depended upon betraying Ned.
Okay.
Had he not, he was going to be executed.
At the end of this, remind me about Littlefinger betraying Ned because I got something to add on that.
Okay. As he carved some slices off the ham, she said, "We have Lady Tanda to thank for the pig. A token of her love? A bribe. She begs leave to return to her castle. Your leave as well as mine. I suspect she fears you'll arrest her on the road, as you did Lord Giles." So that's interesting. Cersei's acknowledging that that she believes she needs not only the Queen Regent's but also the hands, because the last person in the Queen Regent allowed to leave, the hand accused of kidnapping the the heir, right?
Well, that also speaks to Tyrion's power at King's Landing, spreading
Right,
and growing stronger.
right, and Cersei is trying to work with him and say we have to be united for that to take place,
Mhm.
because otherwise one of us will go against the other one behind their back or whatever, right? So,
Right.
um, uh, does she plan to make off with the heir to the throne? Tyrion served his sister a cut of ham and took one for himself. I'd sooner she remain. If she wants to feel safe, tell her to bring down her garrison from Stokeworth. As many men as she has. If we need men so badly, why did you send away your savages? A certain testiness crept into Cersei's voice. It was the best use I could have made of them, he told her truthfully. They're fierce warriors, but not soldiers. In formal battle, discipline is more important than courage. They've already done us more good in the Kingswood than they would ever have done us on the city walls.
That
As
was
this,
a very good stroke of genius doing that.
yeah,
Granted, he left himself bare, but he's correct. That is without a doubt the best thing he could have done with those mountain men.
well, as he said, he's not totally bare. He still has brawn and his cell swords.
Yeah, but I mean, how much can you trust sellswords though?
Yeah, in fact, Cersei is well aware of that, right?
Yeah,
As the swan was being served, the queen questioned him about the conspiracy of the Antler Men. She seemed more annoyed than afraid. Why are we plagued with so many treasons? What injury has House Lannister ever done these wretches? None, said Tyrion. They think to be on the winning side, which makes them fools as well as traitors. I don't know if that's really true that they haven't done any. Anyway,
yeah.
are you certain
Well,
you
I
found
mean,
them all?
loyalty to House Baratheon, I can see. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's not what have the Lannisters done to them. It should be they should stand with House Baratheon because
Yeah, well,
Common is a Baratheon, but that's not the case. All she thinks about is House Lannister, and these people don't give a shit about House Lannister. I mean,
right, right.
the Antler Men are correct, even though they die for it.
Are you certain you found them all? Varys says so. This one was too rich for his taste. A line appeared on Cersei's pale white brow between those lovely eyes. You put too much trust in that eunuch. I told you not to trust me. Well, I mean, in the chapter that parallels the "I told you not to trust me" one, that's where Varys specifically says that he's not sure if Tyrion is his worst enemy or his best friend, right? So
Right.
he's basically telling you, I may have to try and kill you, and of course, I kind of suspect that he does try and kill him. He serves me well. Oh, really? Or so he'd have you believe. You think you're the only one he whispers secrets to? He gives each of us just enough to convince us that we'd be helpless without him. He played the same game with me when I first wed Robert. For years, I was convinced I had no truer friend at court. But now, to study his face for a moment, he says you mean to take the hound from Joffrey. Cersei has Dorcas pegged.
Oh yeah.
Damn, Varys! I need Clegane for more important duties. Nothing is more important than the life of the king. The life of the king is not at risk. Joff will have brave Sir Osmond guarding him, and Meryn Trant as well. They're good for nothing better. I need Balin Swan and the Hound to lead sorties, to make certain Stannis gets no toehold on our side of the Blackwater. He doesn't mention Sir Mandon Moore here. Interesting, right? Which, of
Yeah.
course, part of the reason why Sir Mandon has to take over is because the Hound deserts. But anyway,
That's one of my favorite scenes in the show. Is the Hound leaving the King at the Battle of Blackwater? Uh,
now why does he um, seem to give the same level of distaste to Meryn Trant as Sir Osmond? I mean, um, Sir Osmond, we were under the impression that Tyrion has strongly implied that he's a coward, right?
Right.
So is he? So, or I guess this is also implying that Marin Trant is also a coward, essentially, and that kind of fits, I guess. I mean, we know that he sees Sansa as a thing and not a person. That he doesn't really care about being a
Right.
true knight. He doesn't really seem to care about much of anything. Um,
Now, is Marin Trent the one that was guarding the small council room when Tyrion came to present himself as Hand of the King? And basically,
yeah, I think so. I think so.
uh, okay.
Right, and we know Mandon Moore is the one that Jamie says is dangerous.
So Marin Trent had Tyrion, Timett, son of Timett, and Bronn, and chose to back down and let
Yeah,
Tyrion in, even
it's
though he
it's,
would
it's
give. Yeah,
I just found it interesting because it's implying we know he specifically says that he thinks Sir Osmond is a coward, right?
yeah. I,
And
I think
so
Marin Trent, with him backing down up against just,
he,
yeah. I mean,
that might be
yeah.
what
I think
convinced him.
yeah. I think he's a bit of a coward too.
I think of him as the one that beats Sansa the most and seems to
Yeah.
almost enjoy it, or at least not care about her
Now is Marin Trent the one that Arya kills in the show in Bravos?
in the show. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
and the
I think the show pegged him right. I
and
think he's,
that's what maybe I shouldn't say.
yeah.
Anyway, um, where were we?
Oh, which
The
one
life of
of
a
them
king
was
does not rest.
talking? Which one of them was talking with Littlefinger that we made note of?
That was Balon Swan, who wasn't even
Okay.
who wasn't even a Kingsguard at the time.
Right. Okay.
Right. Balon Swan is kind of he's kind of a badass. He's like the second best archer in the world, after, well, at least south of the wall,
Yeah.
after because I mean, we've got the guy from the Kingswood Brotherhood that put an
Squirrel
arrow through
Belbridge. Yeah.
the Lord Commander's hand. No, I'm talking about
Oh, okay.
Ulmer of the Kingswood. Ulmer of the Kingswood put an arrow through the Lord Commander's hand, which,
Hmm.
um, you know,
Well,
Toodles would say probably the wound probably festered and he probably lost half his hand, right? Um,
right.
and then, and Lady Thistle's convinced me that yeah, that's correct. That he's telling the truth and that it is in fact. Um, and part of that is that Gerald Hightower's name means the spear commander,
Spear
right?
leading. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
In the
Um,
meaning of names, Chris pointed this out yesterday. I think he said it on here, or at least at book club. On my Tormund is Lord Willem Dustin. That Tormund also translates to uh, hill guardian or something like that, like Barrows
okay.
hill guardian. Okay,
Okay. So the
so the
Barrowlands
Lord,
potentially.
yeah, the Lord of the Barrowlands. I mean,
Okay.
okay,
Okay. Where were we? I need
Jamie.
Balance One and the Hound to lead sorties, make certain Stannis gets no toehold on our side of Blackwater. Jamie would lead the sorties himself. From River Run? That's quite a sortie. Joff's only a boy who wants to be part of this battle, and for once he's showing more sense. I don't intend to put him in the thick of the fighting, but he needs to be seen. Men fight more fiercely for a king who shares their peril than one who hides behind his mother's skirts. He's 13, Tyrion. Remember Jamie at 13? If you want the boy to be his father's son, let him play the part. Ooh, saying that out loud. Joffrey
Wow.
is the finest armor gold can buy, and will have a dozen gold cloaks around him at all times. I guess you could interpret it as Robert in the statement. Anyway, if the city
Yeah.
looks to be in the least danger of falling, I'll have him escorted back to the Red Keep at once.
Quick thing. I mean, he was.
Tower Guardian, I think. I gotta find it. LOL, says Lady Thistle.
Yeah. Well, it also goes to hill guardian, I believe. Uh, the remember Jamie at 13. He's Jamie's son, but nothing like Jamie. He's more his mother's, or actually probably more his grandfather's
Yeah, his double
grandson.
grandfather.
Yeah.
He had thought that might reassure her, but he saw no sign of pleasure in those green eyes. Will the city fall? No. But if it does, pray that we can hold the Red Keep long enough for our Lord Father to march to our relief. You've lied to me before, Tyrion. Always with good reason, sweet sister. I want it. Yeah, yes. And he's lying for good reason now. Anyway, I want amity between us as much as you do. I've decided to release Lord Giles. He'd kept Giles safe for just this gesture. You can have Sir Boris Blunt back as well. The queen's mouth tightened. Sir Boris can rot at Rosby, she said. But Tommen stays where he is. He's safer under Lord Jocelyn's protection than he would ever have been in with Lord Giles. Servingman cleared away the swan, hardly touched. Cersei beckoned for the sweet. I hope you like blackberry tarts. I love all sorts of tarts. Oh, oh, I've known that a long while. Do you know why Varys is so dangerous? Are we playing at riddles now? No, he doesn't have a cock. Neither do you. Don't you just hate that, Cersei? Perhaps I'm dangerous too. You, on the other hand, are as big a fool as every other man. That worm between your legs does half your thinking. Tyrion licked the crumbs off his fingers. He did not like his sister's smile. Yes, and just now my worm is thinking that perhaps it is time I took my leave. Are you unwell, brother? She leaned forward, giving him a good look at the top of her breasts. Suddenly you appear somewhat flustered. As we just mentioned, the getting naked or showing cleavage seems to be designed to help make men flustered in this with some of our characters.
Yeah, well, I mean, she uses what she has. I mean, she's a
Oh
beautiful
yeah,
woman. I mean, she's always put other men off guard or sometimes at ease just with her sexuality. This is, you got to remember the time. Um, I mean, to have the queen just sit there and kind of half pop out a boob on you is definitely going to be an unsettling thing, whether you're her little brother or probably Varys doesn't get flustered, but I would think even Littlefinger, or excuse me, Dorcas, I would think it. You seen that movie, Casino Royale, with the James Bond movie? The girl is supposed to walk in behind James Bond in a beautiful dress, and the people at the table are supposed to be looking at the girl and forgetting to mask what they have in their hand so James Bond can gauge
okay,
their reaction. Well, she doesn't do it. She comes in on the side that James Bond's looking at and totally messes it up. But the woman's sexuality, the woman's beauty, uh, startles or whatever the people that are looking at it, and they drop their guard, so they're no longer hiding, bluffing
sure,
what they have in their hand. So
sure.
she does the same thing all the time.
Yep.
Sorry, that was a bit of a rant
No,
to make a small point.
no, yeah. Flustered, Tyrion glanced at the door. He thought he'd heard something outside. He was beginning to regret coming here alone. You've never shown much interest in my cock before. It's not your cock that interests me so much as what you stick it in. I don't depend on the eunuch for everything as you do. I have my own ways of finding out things, especially things that people don't want me to know. What are you trying to say? Only this. I have your little whore. Tyrion reached for his wine cup, buying a moment to gather his thoughts. I thought men were more to your taste. You're such a droll little fellow. Tell me, have you married this one yet? When he gave her no answer, she laughed and said, Father will be ever so relieved. His belly felt as if it were full of eels. How had she found Shay? Had Varys betrayed him? I mean, she just told him that she doesn't rely on him.
Right.
Or had all his precautions been undone by his impatience the night he rode directly to the manse? Why should you care who I choose to warm my bed? A Lannister always pays his debts, she said. You've been scheming against me since the day you came to King's Landing. You sold Myrcella, stole Tommen, now you plot to have Joff killed. You want him dead so you can rule through Tommen. Well, I can't say the notion isn't tempting. This is madness, Cersei. What madness is this? Anyway, Stannis will be here in Stannis will be that's definitely a reference. Stannis will
Yeah.
be here in days. You need me. The notion of having Joff killed to rule through Tommen is tempting. Someone might have to act on that.
Exactly.
For what? Your great prowess in battle? Bronze sellswords will never fight without me, he lied. Oh, I think they will. It's your gold they love, not your impish wit. Have no fear, though. They won't be without you. I won't say I haven't thought of slitting your throat from time to time, but Jamie would never forgive me if I did. Chris the Crow says too. And the whore? He would not call her by name. If I can convince her Shay means nothing to me, perhaps. She'll be treated gently enough, so long as no harm comes to my sons. If Joff should be killed, however, or if Tommen should fall into the hands of our enemies, Your little cunt will die more painfully than you can possibly imagine. She truly believes I mean to kill my own nephew. The boys are safe, he promised her wearily. Gods be good, Cersei, they're my own blood. What sort of man do you take me for? Don't bluff if you don't want people to believe. And you're about to go all in on this and try to make her believe something that you're now surprised that she believes. Anyway, a small and twisted one. Tyrion stared at the dregs on the bottom of his wine cup. What would Jaime do in my place? Kill the bitch, most likely, and worry about the consequences afterward. But Tyrion did not have a golden sword, nor the skill to wield one. He loved his brother's reckless wrath, but it was their Lord Father he must try and emulate. Stone. I must be stone. I must be Casterly rock, hard and unmovable. Having just listened to the episode 4 of Eldrick, that's becoming stone. Interesting. Anyway.
Yeah.
If I fail this test, I had as lief seek out the nearest grotesquerie. For all I know, you've killed her already, he said. Would you like to see her? I thought you might. Cersei crossed the room and threw open the heavy oaken door. Bring in my brother's whore. Sir Osmond's brothers, Osty and Ostred, were peas from the same pod, tall men with hooked noses, dark hair, and cruel smiles. She hung between them, eyes wide and white in her dark face. Blood trickled from her broken lip. You could see bruises through her torn clothing. Her hands were bound with rope. They'd gagged her so she could not speak. So it's kind of interesting that he thought that they were informing on her, but they clearly have not informed him of this.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway.
Yeah, that is the straw that broke the cattle back, or the camel's back, when it comes to them, because he didn't get a heads up.
Yep. You said she wouldn't be hurt. She fought. Unlike his brother, Austin Kettleblack was clean shaven, so the scratches showed plainly on his bare cheeks. Got claws like a shadow cat, this one. Bruce's heel, said Cersei in a bored tone. The whore will live so long as Joff does. Tyrion wanted to laugh at her. It would have been so sweet, so very, very sweet, but it would have given the game away. You've lost, Cersei, and the Kettleblacks are even bigger fools than Bronn claimed. All he needed to do was say the words. Instead, he looked at the girl's face and said, You swear you'll release her after the battle? If you release Tommen, yes. He pushed himself to his feet. Keep her then, but keep her safe. These animals think they can use her. Well, sweet sister, let me point out that a scale tips two ways. His tone was calm, flat, uncaring. He'd reached for his father's voice and found it. Whatever happens to her happens to Tommen as well. That includes the beatings and rapes. If she thinks me such a monster, I'll play the part for her. Yep. This is not the last time that he'll decide to become the monster people think he is.
Yeah.
Cersei had not expected that. You would not dare. Tyrion made himself smile, slow and cold. Green and black, his eyes laughed at her. Dare? I'll do it myself. I can't imagine why people would think Tyrion is a monster.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he only got so many cards that he can play at this point. He can't let on that. Huh?
I'm not saying he's not good at this, and it's not a good move. I'm just saying that this is what Tyrion's about, right? It's about him being judged a monster and then deciding to embrace being the monster, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Jaime is the villain who decides that he can change his story and be good from now on.
Yeah, and save the world because he's Azor High and he'll never die. And his golden armor.
Course.
With
of course.
Yes, of course. I'm waiting for Pod to say something now. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. His sister's hand flashed at his face, but he caught her wrist and bent it back until she cried out. Ostra moved to her rescue. One more step and I'll break her arm, the dwarf warned him. The man stopped. Remember when I said you'd never hit me again, Cersei? He shoved her to the floor and turned back to the Kettleblacks. Untie her and remove that gag. The rope had been so tight as to cut off the blood to her hands. She cried out in pain as the circulation returned. Tyrion massaged her fingers gently until feeling returned. Sweetling, he said, you must be brave. I'm sorry they hurt you. I know you'll free me, my lord. I will, he promised. Naliaya bent over and kissed him on the brow. Her broken lips left a smear of blood on his forehead. A bloody kiss is more than I deserve, Tyrion thought. She would never have been hurt but for me. Her blood still marked him as he looked down at the queen. I've never liked you, Cersei, but you were my own sister, so I never did you harm. You've ended that. I will hurt you for this. I don't know how yet, but give me time. Day will come when you think yourself safe and happy, and suddenly your joy will turn to ashes in your mouth, and you'll know the debt is paid. Kind of funny that that happens when he hasn't yet paid the debt.
Yeah.
In war, his father had told him once, the battle is over in the instant one army breaks and flees. No matter what, no matter that they're as numerous as they were a moment before, still armed and armored, once they had run before you, they would not turn to fight again. So it was with Cersei. Something that well, we know that
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. I
that's
said
how
Pop was
often.
going to say something, and he did.
Yep, yep. Um, so it was with Cersei. Get out was all the answer she could summon. Get out of my sight. Tyrion bowed. Good night then, and pleasant dreams. He made his way back to the Tower of the Hand with 1,000 armored feet marching through his skull. I ought to have seen this coming the first time I slipped through the back of Chataya's wardrobe. Perhaps he had not wanted to see. His legs were aching badly by the time he had made the climb. He sent Pod for a flagon of wine and pushed his way into his bedchamber. Shay sat cross-legged in the canopy bed, nude but for the heavy golden chain that looped across the swell of her breasts, a chain of linked golden hands, each clasping the next. Tyrion had not expected her. What are you doing here? So it's interesting because this is obviously foreshadowing her death, right? She likes to have the chain around her.
Yeah.
Laughing, she stroked the chain. I wanted some hands on my titties, but these little gold ones are cold. For a moment, he did not know what to say. How could he tell her that another woman had taken the beating meant for her and might well die in her place should some mischance of battle fell Joffrey? He wiped Aliyaya's blood from his brow with the heel of his hand. The Lady Lawless. She's asleep. Sleep's all she ever wants to do, the great cow. She sleeps and she eats. Sometimes she falls asleep while she's eating. The food falls under the blankets, and she rolls in it, and I have to clean her. She made a disgusted face. All they did was fuck her. Her mother says she's sick. She has a baby in her belly, that's all. Shay and Sansa kind of think alike, and I suspect neither have been pregnant. Tyrion gazed around the room. Everything seemed much as he left it. How did you enter? Show me the hidden door. She gave a shrug. Lord Varys made me wear a hood. I couldn't see, except there was one place. I got a peep at the floor out the bottom of the hood. It was all tiles, the kind that make a picture? A mosaic? Shay nodded. They were colored red and black. I think the picture was a dragon. Otherwise, everything was dark. We went down the ladder and walked a long ways until I was all twisted around. Once we stopped so he could unlock an iron gate. I brushed against it when we went through. The dragon was past the gate. Then we went up another ladder with a tunnel at the top. I had to stoop, and I think Lord Varys was crawling. Tyrion made a round of the bedchamber. One of the sconces looked loose. He stood on his toes and tried to turn it. It revolved slowly, scraping against the stone wall. When it was upside down, the stub of the candle fell out. The rushes scattered across the cold stone floor. It did not show any particular disturbance. Doesn't my lord want to bed me? Asked Shay. In a moment. Tyrion threw open his wardrobe, shoved the clothing aside, and pushed against the rear panel. What worked for a whorehouse might work for a castle as well. But no, the wood was solid, unyielding. A stone beside the window seat drew his eye, but all his tugging and prodding went for naught. He returned to the bed, frustrated and annoyed. Uh-oh. Did we lose you for a second?
I guess we're fine though.
Yeah, okay. We decided to switch sides for some reason.
Well, I mean, you're doing all the talking, so you might go first anyway.
Shay undid his laces and threw her arms around his neck. Your shoulders feel as hard as rocks, she murmured. Hurry, I want to feel you inside me. Yet as her legs locked around his waist, his manhood left him. When she felt him go soft, Shay slid down under the sheets and took him in her mouth, but even that could not rouse him. After a few moments, he stopped her. What's wrong? She asked. All the sweet innocence of the world was written there in the lines of her young face. Innocence? Fool, she's a whore. Cersei was right. You think with your cock. Fool, fool. Just go to sleep, sweetling, he urged, stroking her hair. Yet long after Shay had taken his advice, Tyrion himself still lay awake, his fingers kept over one small breast as he listened to her breathing. Up next, Clash 55, Catelyn 7, Some wine for the Kingslayer.
Well, apparently Varys knew what was going to happen with Aliaya, or whatever her name is, and that would probably be the reason
Oh,
for
so he's in a
Shay
big
being.
hurry to get to him first.
Well, I
Um,
mean, he didn't tell Tyrion about it, but apparently he did know about it because he put Shay in his bedroom, knowing that the evening was not going to go well for Tyrion.
yeah, yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought that through.
Yeah. Which,
Yeah.
I mean, again, that's Dorcas playing both sides against the middle. You didn't tell Tyrion, give him a heads up.
Yep.
The
Yep. And
the Kettle Blacks proved themselves worthless. So I
yeah.
mean, apparently, Cersei's legs are more important than Tyrion's gold. So, which she's got gold too. So I mean, there's cell swords. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're already taking payment from probably three people at once, right?
exactly.
Because we know Littlefinger's also got them.
Yeah,
Although he doesn't trust the one that took the white because he's found that he cannot control people after they take the white.
yeah. Something about that white cloak.
Right. Which implies, of course, that Man and Moore was actually not working for Littlefinger, and for this book to parallel the first book, the person he would have to be working for would be Dorcas.
Agreed. Oh yeah, I remembered all on my own.
Oh yeah, yeah, Ned.
Yeah. I have this thought. All right, this is what I was thinking about last night. Anticipating the book club, which I still don't know if I'm gonna be able to make it to. I'll know by about 3 or 4 o'clock how my energy level is. But um, during the prologue and the battle of the Fist of the First Men, all right, we have White Walkers and we have Whites, and there's a great distance of time in between both. Okay, first we see the White Walkers in the prologue. They kill Royce,
Mm-hmm.
and then after Will cannot hold on any longer, afraid to move, waiting forever before he climbs down, then Royce as a White um, um, chokes Will. Okay, so we don't actually see the White Walkers turn Royce into a White. I'm not saying they can't. I'm not just saying we don't see that. Because when
Mm-hmm.
Will comes down, Royce is still on the ground. Red Bull gives you wings, exactly. Um, and then at the Battle of the Fist of the First Men, all we see is Whites attacking, and then they charge. And then after days of walking, one more step, which I know Lady Thistle will go into great detail tonight. Um, because I think it's one of her favorite chapters because she has a lot of opinions on it, and every one of them are probably correct. We don't. They have a circle of fire walking around them. They keep going and going and going. So a long time after the Fist of the First Men, then we see a White Walker riding a whited horse. Now this is why I say the White Walkers can white reanimate a creature. We get a a hint of how they're able to do this from Garrett when he says the cold gets in you. They're using their cold ice magic to reanimate these dead things. Okay, I'm not counting that as the same as the whited army with the White Walker. That's a White Walker riding a whited horse. It's not a reanimated man doing stuff against humans. So my theory is, just like Littlefinger um, putting the Lannisters and the Starks against each other, there's a force in the north that have been, yeah, definitely ice spiders come, that have been able to recreate and duplicate the White Walker's ability to reanimate things using ice magic, which is probably possibly the Children of the Forest. But my theory is just like Littlefinger starting a war between two things in the north, there's somebody starting a war between the White Walkers and the humans. The White Walkers are actually the enemy. It's the middleman that's actually doing the reanimation of the humans, that has the undead army, is actually the bad guy. It's not the White Walkers, and it's not the humans. There's a third party that's causing all of this. If that makes any sense whatsoever. What you say, Splenda?
Sleipnir. That's Odin's horse.
Okay.
Yeah, Odin's horse has 8 legs. So it's essentially a giant spider, right? I mean, it's supposed to look like a horse, but it's basically a giant spider. And LML would say that if you look at the artwork of ice and snow covered weirwoods, they kind of look like ice spiders.
Okay.
So he would argue that.
I don't know if I made any sense with that. It's just popped in my head that somebody's playing the same Game of Thrones that's being played south of the wall is being played north of the wall to mirror, because George repeats a lot of things, and I mean, I don't know. We were talking about it the other day about
we've talked about how we believe that there's Bran and an actual great other, the boss, basically, right? This some sort of hive mind entity, Azor High trapped in Weirwood, whatever. But there's the idea that there's basically 2 chess players, right? At the time travel, god like altering level, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, Sleipnir is the 8-legged horse ridden by Odin, and so LML would argue that the riding the Weirwoods is riding Sleipnir, and that the Weirwoods look like ice spiders and so forth. But and that the term ice spider implies basically Sleipnir, that it's a giant 8-legged spider would be like an 8-legged horse.
Yeah. Well, I mean, anyway. Just as you were saying that we've got Bran and somebody else playing the Cyvass game, that person that's playing against Bran is the one I'm talking about. That's reanimating the humans and creating the army of the undead. But just as Bran is manipulating, not only Bran, there's several other people that are doing some manipulation going on of the actions people take. The same thing is happening north of the wall to move pieces and everything. It's the people that are getting moved south of the wall doesn't necessarily make them the bad guy. It's just that they're getting help to be the bad guy because somebody's manipulating their choices. So it's the same thing as being done.
Needs them to do that for a good outcome, right? I mean, sometimes
right.
I mean, he needs Ned to die, and we've talked about all the different things that happen from Ned dying. We've talked about how Jorah, selling slaves results both in Lyness being where she needs to be and in control of the fleet, and that the High Towers are going after, and Jorah
to be there with Dany,
right? Yeah.
Well, I mean,
ice spiders that shoot frost lasers from their web shooters.
Well, aren't there web shooters on the backside?
Another appeared from out of the falling snow with a man in black leading it. An other, led by a man in black. Yep.
And this will always get that mic drop.
Yeah, and LML seems to have implied that it might be that Jon Snow is going to actually lead the others. I don't know.
There's several people that have actually said that. I don't know. I mean, a lot of it is what happens to his body before he gets reanimated, if the ice gets it first type situation.
It could be. I mean, I keep talking about how I think that we need to have an empty tomb, and we need Melisandre to be the witness of the empty tomb, and that's the important Jesus symbolism rather than 3 days or whatever. But we've already got the 3 days symbolism, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it has to happen again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know I joke around with Jamie and all that kind of stuff. I just don't know if I fully accept a good person from the beginning of the story all the way through being the hero. You know what I mean?
Right, right,
I mean,
right.
there's an arc, but it's just not. It's a different kind of arc. When you got like a
Yeah,
Jamie or the Hound or something, somebody like that that has all those flaws, and it at first is not likable whatsoever because of
right,
their
right,
actions and things they
right,
do.
right.
It
Like,
creates more of an
and
arc.
it's
Yeah,
and you know, it's interesting that we got both, you know, the Order of the Green Hand and and LML being like, oh, there's no signs that Danny's gonna go crazy. I'm like it, we're told she's King Lear.
yeah. I
Anyway,
mean,
anyway,
people. I
and
mean, people see what they want. I mean, it's
yeah,
like I
yeah.
said, we get
I I do think it's strongly implied that she's King Lear, and if a Shakespearean hero is not a villain, it's sort of villain adjacent. It's sort of like a
yeah.
villain.
Well, I mean,
I mean, they're still the protagonist of the story, and they're still, and you understand them, and you understand why they make the decisions they make, but those decisions lead them down the wrong path, and then they get in over their head. Basically, that's
right.
basically what a Shakespearean hero is, right? Somebody who makes a very understandable decision that we understand why they're doing what they're doing every step of the way, and
Mhm.
those decisions lead them in over their head and committed to being something similar to a villain, basically. And um, and you know, it is strongly the Shakespearean references with her are really
Right.
strong, and
Well, I mean,
um,
take Jon
and
Snow. Okay.
similarly, Jon Snow is another character that whose growth arc is almost is mostly in the first book, right? Who kind of becomes um, the good the good person. Although I guess he doesn't really gain power until
No.
you know, the end of
Well, I mean,
Storm, I suppose.
he was a Ned clone from the get go. I mean,
Right,
he's a young Ned, and he stays a young Ned pretty much all the
right.
way through. Granted, there's little hills here and there with the good times and the bad times, but there's
But if
not this
but if
high arc. Yeah.
Ned had to commit the ultimate, you know, like worst act. His one true vow of not taking another wife is the literal marriage vow, and he
Mhm.
completely betrays it in order to stop the Mad King. Jamie's one true vow is to protect the king. He completely betrays it to stop the Mad King, right?
Yeah.
And so, and you could argue that John has done this, right? He's agreed to go to war in the South as the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, and that's
Right.
essentially betraying his vow. And it's arguable that the men correctly assassinate him, right?
Yeah.
And so you could kind of say that he's actually is crossing that line, and
Well, here's the thing: if you can give Ned a pass for killing Garrett in Bran's first chapter, because Garrett was a deserter, and that was what
Mhm.
Ned was supposed to do in this world, what John did is the same as what Garrett did. You know what I'm saying? I agree. He's committed to going south
Right, right.
to
He's deserting. Yeah,
right. So I mean,
yeah.
it's like the Mirmaz Dur. Uh, everybody hates her because they think she did something bad and everything, but
Oh yeah,
she,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've heard this argument, by the way, that since the last time we discussed this, I think.
yeah,
So the history of Westeros claims, and I don't buy this at all because I think we see the standard of care in Westeros, which I'll get to, but
mm,
but they claim that if you sew back the skin on, then that means you're trying to poison somebody. I'm like, really? Because we know the standard of care with the Iron Islands, right? We know that one of the Greyjoy brothers had his fingers sewed back on, and that the Maesters believed that was the correct approach. Do you think that the Maester was trying to commit suicide, or do you think that that's the standard of care in Westeros? Like
yeah,
one or the other of those is true, and my money's on it's the standard of care in Westeros, right? We know that this is a magical necromancer character that's studied with the Archmaester of Necromancy,
mm,
who 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 knows all of the Maester's standard of care. She's
plus,
following the Maester standard of care of Westeros,
right,
and she's a freaking necromancer. So the idea that oh, you don't sew dead skin on, they're Marwyn and Qyburn and Mary Mazdur are freaking necromancers. You sew the dead skin on. So yeah, I totally do not buy that logic.
Yeah. Well, I
Anyway,
mean, she's definitely. I mean, she was a powerful enough person for the Lamb people. I forget whatever town it was that they sacked and everything.
yeah.
Built her a temple to have. Yeah.
Well, my point is their argument is that we know in the real world that you wouldn't sew dead skin back onto somebody because that would be a guaranteed infection. And I'm like
Well, no, no.
okay,
Okay,
but
the
but
battle
this is the
happened.
but she's a
Okay,
necromancer.
now the battle happened. Wasn't his nipple just like hanging
Yeah,
down?
that's the other thing is
It's
the other thing
not
is
dead yet.
sewing up a wound that just happened is
Yeah,
the standard care in this world. That's the other thing is I didn't buy
yeah.
the logic that was already dead skin that couldn't be
That's not
saved.
dead skin. That's
Yeah,
live
I didn't
skin
buy
that
that
they're
either.
wanting to reattach and
No, I
reactivate
don't. I don't. I
and
don't really
rebuild
buy
the
that
connect. Yeah.
that logic. Even the in our world logic is. I question that too. But
Yeah.
but it's certainly the standard of care in Westeros, and she's a freaking necromancer who studied with the Archmaester of Necromancy
Okay.
along, in
I'm gonna go
Tyrus.
ahead and say this for the record.
Archmaester.
If my
Anyway.
nipple ever gets cut off, please sew it back on. All right. We're at the 50 minutes. It's Friday.
Yeah, yeah. And this is
Monday will be chapter 55, Catelyn 7. Oh, yeah, some wine with the Kingslayer. I like this chapter.
yeah. Oh
It's a
yeah.
very good chapter.
Yeah. This is the whole Eris reveal.
Yeah, very good chapter. But
Selling it on Etsy.
yeah, okay.
Lady
I don't know if
Thistles.
I said this
Lady
or not.
Thistles. I don't know. I
News
don't
on
know.
our land. The double wide's out there. We've called power. The cable, underground cables. We're calling the water today so they can do the hookup for that. So we're moving pretty quick with this. I think we got another 4 weeks maybe on the septic and drain field. That will probably be the last thing that gets done before we move in. So there will be probably a week of the move that I'll have to bow out on episodes, and then I still don't know
That
what
happens.
our internet connection is going to be down there. So it might even be longer than that. I will give heads up on Discord, and even though I've kind of pretty much shunned Twitter, Twitter spelled backwards spells Satan. So yeah, I kind of stay away from Twitter now. I was kidding with the spelling Satan.
Retweet.
But yeah, it did. Well, Elon Musk bought it. It did.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's bad.
yeah. So
Anyway,
okay. That being said, it is Friday. I thank Richard again for all that he does for this. I thank Lady Thistle, Sanji. Congratulations being first.
you see Lady Thistle selling your nipple.
Yep. Yeah, the Lady Thistle. If my nipple ever gets cut off, please have it sewed back on. You can sew it on upside down.
No,
I don't care.
she's gonna. She's not. She's selling it.
No. You're not. No, you never get any money for that thing. There you go. I'll come in for an extra game.
Before or after game
All right.
to the pub. Get some rest, dude. All right.
I appreciate it, Pod. That is definitely what I'm gonna do right now. I am going to smoke a cigarette and then go lay down. But everybody, Sanji, Chris, Lady Thistle, Pod, appreciate it. Y'all be good. It's the weekend. Take care. We will see y'all Monday. Richard, again, thank you very much, and have a good weekend.
Bye. Yeah, you too.